So, everything we've talked about up to this point has been centered around the different strategies you can use to widen your 3-betting range in position. But what should your 3-betting range look like when you're out of position? It makes sense that beginners and transitioning Hold'em players experience a lot of confusion about 3-betting out of position, because there's a lot of conflicting guidelines in terms of what the most profitable strategy is. Most books and videos tell you to knit it up out of the blinds, but does that mean that our 3-betting range should narrow up too? Which opponent types should we be 3-betting? 3-betting aces seems standard when you're in position, but should you always pull the trigger when you're out of position as well? And how does stack depth affect our hand selection for creating big pots out of position? We'll get to all of that in the next couple of slides. But for now, let's go over the reasons for why 3-betting out of position can be profitable if you know how to do it correctly. First, as I've said many times, reducing the SPR out of position makes the hand a lot easier to play, because it helps neutralize the positional advantage that the player on the button has against you, and allows you to get the money in fast post-flop, which greatly reduces the number of mistakes you might otherwise make if there was more money behind to play with. Second, weak players generally don't respond to aggression very well, and what I mean by that is that they either over-adjust by getting stacks in too light, or they play fit or fold on the flop, and allow you to pick up all of the dead money by c-betting. Last, in many cases, 3-betting out of position makes the hand a lot easier to play, because it forces out the big blind and allows you to play a 3-bet pot heads up with the initiative instead of a 3-way single raised pot out of position without the initiative. We'll talk more about hand selection in the next couple of slides and in the hand histories after the lesson, but for now just realize that knocking out the big blind adds more value to your non-nutty hands, because you don't have to worry about playing a pot out of position against two players if you 3-bet it and get heads up. Now, the biggest mistake I've seen players make is that they think that everything they know about 3-betting should be thrown out the window, simply because they're out of position this time. Well, just like any other poker game, adjustments definitely need to be made in order for you to play profitably. But for the most part, the same principles we discussed earlier in the lesson that make 3-betting in position a profitable play still apply when you're out of position. For example, you still want to target the loose openers and the weak opponents, and you still want to use raw equity, lack of nuttiness, and smooth equity distribution to guide your 3-betting ranges. But the biggest adjustment about 3-betting out of position is that your range needs to be significantly tighter than when you're in position for a couple of reasons. First, like we mentioned earlier, something you'll quickly notice is that people don't like to fold to 3-bets very much in PLO. But this is exaggerated even more when they have position on you. So to make a 3-bet out of position profitable, it's important to be 3-betting a stronger range of hands in order to compensate for being out of position. Plus, when you 3-bet out of position, you're going to be c-betting a higher percentage of flops, as well as bet calling on more flops. And I don't know about you, but if I know I'm going to be c-betting and stacking off more often, I prefer to have hands that can flop some equity on a high percentage of flops. So it shouldn't surprise you that the main hands you want to 3-bet out of position are single and double suited hands with high card strength. Or more simply, the majority of hands that fall into the premium and playability groups that we talked about earlier. We'll talk more about 3-betting out of position in the hand histories, but essentially, my view of hands that are good candidates for 3-betting are those which are ahead of my opponent's opening range, pick up equity on a lot of boards, allow me to represent a wide range of hands, and are ahead of my opponent's felting range post-flop. Alright, I'm going to spend a little time talking about 3-betting aces, because it seems to be an area that a lot of beginning players have trouble with. The best advice I can give you is to use the same process for deciding whether to 3-bet aces as you would any other hand. From my experience, many players have some strange bias towards aces, where they view aces in a completely different perspective than all of the other hands. I remember a few months ago I was doing a lesson with one of my students, and we were going over a hand where he decided to 3-bet very raggedy aces in a button versus cutoff situation. I asked him why he decided to 3-bet it, and he simply replied, "Because I have aces." Then I asked him what he would have done with raggedy kings, and he said he would have called always. I thought it was amusing, because given the stack sizes and the table dynamics, raggedy kings and aces play very similarly in a spot like that. And what I eventually got him to realize, and I hope you do by now as well, is that it's more important to view a starting hand in terms of the post-flop scenario you're creating for yourself. Anyways, stack sizes greatly impact the decision of whether to 3-bet aces or not. A good rule of thumb to have is that with your weaker aces, you want to commit approximately 40% of your stack pre-flop so that you can ship on any flop. This is because if you 3-bet for, let's say, 10 or 20% of your stack, it becomes awkward on a lot of flops, because with weak aces, you'll be left with a dry overpair on 80% of boards. Next, opponent tendencies play a key role for 3-betting aces. If a weaker player opens and I have some weak aces, like ace-ace 7-3 single suited, I'm still likely to 3-bet that in position, because even though a hand like that plays fine multi-way with deeper stacks, the combination of my positional advantage, skill advantage, and card advantage makes it more profitable to play a pot with a weaker player heads up. Let's say I have the same hand again, but this time a good player opens and there's a fish or two in the blinds. I'm more likely to just call and give myself a chance to let someone squeeze behind, or win a big pot by oversetting or overflushing someone. Last, the smoothness of your aces greatly affects how profitably you can 3-bet them. I mentioned a second ago that you should mainly be looking to commit 40% of your stack pre-flop with your weaker aces, so that you can commit the rest of your stack on the flop. But that rule doesn't apply for the more premium sets of aces. This is simply because they have such good coverage on a wide variety of flops, so they're comfortable being 3-bet at any stack depth with any number of players.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Casino Crime here. Now, if you like this video and you want more, then go ahead and click the subscribe button below right now. And if you want to join me for more of my 6 max success secrets and free video tutorials, just click the link to the right. See you inside the trainings. Good luck.